Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
Yeah, I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the walking. Just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution.
Cold like 0 degrees. I'm out the cage, gotta let out the beast. Revolutionary, gotta let out the streets. Locked in a cage, I'ma let out the sheets. You came for one man, forget my peace. You take the west, I'll take on the east. I'ma put him in the cage, never let out the.
Yeah, I hear him chat to the noise. Move too quick, can't stop for the talking. I hear him chat with the boys. Man so tough, but man's keep walking. Yeah, just too sharp with the prize. White girls let it tell me I'm awesome. Yeah, hot like fire on the pan. If you wanna touch my please use caution.
Stop that. Stop that. Stop that.
Izzy Gutierrez is in with us today. Did that go out on air, Chris Cody? Is that where we started today with?
That was a callback to yesterday's show. Like we had so many things happen yesterday. I'm like, let's do it again today.
Yeah, let's just keep doing that. Yes. It's always fun. One of my favorite things is right out of the gate when we just trip and fall on our face.
Just what I needed.
Somebody has written in here, Dan's unique talent is to make me want to disagree with him about something he supports strictly because of how obnoxious and whiny he sounds delivering it. Kicker is that most of the time I already agree with him. I do think that's my unique talent. I do believe that talent is something I have more than any other talent.
Make people who agree with you disagree with you?
That's right.
Yeah.
Just because of tone and not even the substance of what I'm saying. It's just my face.
It's a Jedi mind trick. It's just the Le Batard one.
This is also fair criticism, I think. Dan is wild. I don't think he's ever just said, I was wrong, without some elaborate explanation as to why he actually wasn't wrong. Everyone else is just too simple to understand his deepest of thought processes. I believe that's also correct.
It is. What do you mean you believe?
Well, I'm not sure. To say that it's correct would be to admit I'm wrong. You confirming it doesn't prove anything.
You do a lot of, oh, I'm sorry, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant.
That's correct. The part that you think is wrong, that's not what I meant. I just meant the parts that you think are right. But I did want to talk about something to start the show here today, because I'm always talking about the fact that I think that sports media coverage cruelty makes it so that it's very hard to simply celebrate greatness in sports conversationally. And what I wanted to talk about as it relates to Simone Biles is something that happened with me watching her that I was legitimately surprised happened to me, which I had a hiccup of breathlessness, my breath taken away from when she lands, the way that she lands, because I realize I'm watching something that goes beyond where I thought human limits used to be. And when she hits in that corner without taking a step, the sound summons something in me.
A hiccup
of my breath taken away. And so I know there are times in sports, all over sports, a goal horn, a moment of drama. Hell, the rugby result yesterday, where the last play of the game, you're winning the game. There are all sorts of things that happen all the time in sports that are like that. But I wanted to ask the group, where in sports do you find the things like that that are celebratory in nature and test human limits or what you think about human limits so much that your breath is literally taken away in the moment of what it is that you're witnessing, because you're like, how does a human being do that is well beyond anything I've been able to see a human being ever do.
How does that human being do something so much better than everyone else who is working just as hard as she is at what it is they
Who's
do?
ever done it, those Stugotz? You think you know something. No, we're not experts.
I watched that floor exercise last night.
That's the stuff that takes your breath away. But there have been some stuff online recently where they've had actual D1 gymnasts just try to do a move that she does, like that spin, crouch down move. I forget what it's called, on the balance beam, and they can't do it one time. She does it 3 times. Meanwhile, you're talking about her landing perfectly on a move named after her. Yeah, it's breathtaking.
Call me old school, but a 104 mile an hour fastball still gets me going.
Huh?
You've been struggling with the speaking lately. What's going on with you? What's going on with you?
I'm just saying more words, baby. I mean, this is me.
It's that me and Chris do a bit of a ping pong match where we'll all like missay words, right? And then he'll look back at me, and then I'll look back at him, and I'll say something I'm like, I gotcha.
Chris is human.
What'd you say?
104 mile an hour fastball.
I feel like I stumbled on like one little word in there. It was pretty clear what I said.
So you see a 104 mile an hour fastball and you go,
Hiccup?
Like Dan last night.
You sure you just didn't have the hiccups? Like this is a whole segment built on a little gas?
I wasn't left breathless because I realized that I had to save my breath for a more pressure-filled competition. The U.S. entered that medal round in the team gymnastics final a minus 1,300 favorite to win the gold. In fact, if you watch her routines, for her, which is, I mean, the curve that she's established, she played it kind of safe. Yes, the difficulty level, especially with the floor exercise, is way up there. But if she'll step out of bounds or if she won't get as much height, like these are things that she was playing a little bit more safe with her routines with.
They had the goal wrapped up.
So, like, there was an interesting moment in which when she was on the floor, because we all know what's hovering over all of this is the pressure and what happened at the previous Olympics. There was a moment where she just basically has to avoid a total disaster, and they win the gold. But all the other rotations stopped, and all eyes were on her. And it took something that already has a fair amount of pressure, just made it way more tense. But for me, I'm saving my breath for like the all around the individual competitions, because the competition is going to be so much more heightened, and the pressure will correspond with that.
They talked about it. Her and Jordan Childs talked about when they knew they won the gold, and that was when Simone hit her vault, because that was when they were like, oh, okay, we're not going to have flashbacks to Japan. She's going to be okay. And that's all she has to be is okay, and they're still going to win. I don't know if any of you guys watched the latest documentary with her on Netflix. I liked it. I thought
I'm watching
it was
the Peacock one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This one, it's very much like, the sprinter one, the receiver one. It's all sort of cookie cutter. But this one, the thing that got me about Simone Biles is I always thought of her as this perfect, like, athletic robot, like this princess, like, because obviously they started at such a young age in gymnastics, and she has been so good, almost robotic in how good she is. This humanized her in a way that made me say, oh, wow. Like, I'm going to feel the pressure for her more than I did back before I knew her. Because I thought she was just, again, this freak of nature who can do this at a moment's notice with no practice.
Even after her bailing on the last time we saw her have to deal with pressures of this kind and saying, I'm not going to do that, I feel like I'm going to get physically hurt.
It felt to me like a computer glitch, that. Especially because there was no fans, everything was different, and so it probably felt different to her. And I was like, oh, okay, they'll reprogram her, she'll be fine. But then watching that and seeing just the lack of confidence that comes up even when she was younger, even when she knows that she's the best in the world, all that is just hard to fathom when you're as good as she is. But yeah, it humanized her in a way that made me feel a lot more pressure for her in these games.
It was kind of a relaxing experience to watch, to know that they kind of had it locked up, because I have a strange amount of connection points as a 38-year-old white Hispanic male who can't do anything near what she can do, but was in front of microphones, was defending her, was someone that suffered with performance anxiety and self-doubt and panic and all that stuff. So I was already locked in and fully invested, but also as someone that has provided all that context, just an admirer of the competition, peak athletics, and actually conquering your demons, I reserve my breath for what's to come later on. And I wasn't totally blown away by it because she had to play it safe, and it was a team competition. The rules are totally different.
But the team competition, to me, and I'm curious what Jess thinks about this, is because you mentioned your age. And so to me, like, I came up with, Mary Lorette, and I mentioned it yesterday, and how difficult it was for the U.S. women to reach the top. And now that they've stayed there for such a long time, something of a gymnastics dynasty, if you will, Jess, how do you see that? Because I've always seen it as so stressful, so difficult, and that this team has overcome so much, whereas now it just feels like kind of a cakewalk.
Yeah, I would say that this team is definitely peerless, I guess you could say. Like, they won by 6 points, and then I think the bronze was another 7 points behind that. So they really didn't have much competition, but you still have to go out there and actually perform and do it, which that in itself takes so much strength, and especially given all of the horrible scandals in U.S. gymnastics over the last 10 years, just knowing that these are athletes that have been through that and have seen like the really ugly side of gymnastics too. I don't really take anything for granted with them. I think everything that these athletes have accomplished should get the most praise because of how difficult the road has been, and just even how difficult the sport really is to compete in. It's so hard. I mean, these are athletes that start competing at such a young age, and I can't even imagine how difficult it must be to go through it and then to ultimately win gold. It must feel so cathartic, especially. I'm
glad it still feels that way.
Just waiting.
Because for me, for somebody who's been watching them as so great for so long, I thought that maybe you'd take it for granted. But I'm glad you don't feel that
definitely
way.
not. And especially because there were former gymnasts that were formerly competing for the U.S. that did make negative comments about this team that these gold medal winners heard and internalized and then kind of threw back at in their faces. I thought that was another really nice way to end it too.
Given what she dealt with and all the other people that don't follow the sport whatsoever, forcing their takes, and it became something that spiraled into just a mass scandal. I, much like kind of Megan Rapinoe with the pressure with the World Cup, because there was all sorts of political stuff going around her, I wanted her to reach the top to shut everybody up. And for Simone, I want her to have a situation where she's challenged, where everyone can acknowledge, wow, how is she going to do this? Not only is everyone bringing their game, but she also has to battle herself in this moment, her physical and mental. She has to overcome all of that. And I kind of want to see those moments play out as an admirer of her, admirer of the amazing things these people can do that I have zero connection point to. I want to see that.
You heard their team name, right?
Why is this music playing right now?
It's our Olympic music.
It's our Olympic music.
Golden Girls.
But what are we doing?
Is it Golden Girls?
That was what she said was the official tune.
Okay.
Wasn't it F around
and find out? Is it?
I felt like this segment needs a bed. That's what I was thinking midway through.
Cool. Yeah. Well, at least it's not a dangerous topic, kinda, to like have a bed interrupt you in the middle of your take.
Because everyone's being.
And we're
put
talking about
to
like
sleep
mental health.
by it.
Talking about Olympics.
Did someone say Dynasty? I didn't hear anything else, but I did hear Dynasty. Was there Dynasty talk?
There's a Dynasty.
Really?
The women's Dynasty.
Wow,
yes.
I love a good Dynasty.
I have in front of me here some Cody criticism that is coming fast and hard from yesterday. Not Chris Cody, Greg Cody.
What?
I get the show, but listening to Greg Cody, who has never been the best columnist at his own newspaper, complain about the U.S. gymnastics team celebrating third place had me the closest I've ever been to wanting to punch an elderly man. I've thrown 3 punches in my entire life. I also got a text from a friend of mine who used to be a gymnast, and he wrote, "I'm 2 seconds into your first hour, and I bleeping want to kill Greg Cody for shitting on my men's gymnastics team. Stugotz can go bleep off as well.
What did I do?
It's the hardest sport in the world, sans wrestling, and those guys went 18 for 18 in hit routines. It was a magical night, and Stugotz and Cody shit all over it because they finished in third place. What do you mean, what did you do?
They were good, just not good enough. I mean, I'm sorry.
The ultimate Cody sequel would have been if he came in today and said that the U.S. women's team didn't celebrate enough. They should have celebrated more because they got gold.
I would have loved to hear his take on the U.S. women's rugby team who won bronze on a walk-off and apparently were supposed to celebrate with handshakes, according to Greg Cody.
That's correct. Tony, at some point today, I am going to send you into Miami with prizes for people on the street, anyone who can name a single Marlin. Anyone who, right now, a single current Marlin, because the Marlin payroll is now under $14 million. They've traded every player. They are paying no one more than $2.1 million.
We could just do that in the studio.
I was going to say.
I don't know if I could name one right now.
I'm curious if Tony dresses in preparation to be thrown out onto the street every day, because it feels like you get tossed out quite often.
Just in case, the only issue I have with that, Dan, is if they tell me somebody, I don't know whether to confirm, like if they're a Marlin too, so like I need somebody there
with me
print
to
out
help
the
roster.
You got to have a roster.
Joke's on you. Joke's on you. The Bally's blackout meant that I didn't know anybody's name before the deadline.
All you have to do is have a roster, Tony,
Yeah.
a printed roster. I know, though, now, this happened to me the other day on Pablo Torre Finds Out, because I was using physical paper in my hand. Mina and Pablo were making fun of me for using physical paper in my hand. So you don't even have to print out a roster, I suppose. You could just...
It's on your phone?
You can just have it on your phone.
Yeah, but you know me. I like to have my hands loose. I like to have the
Exactly.
mic, making things happen. So I need somebody else to hold it for me.
If you were to count, just guessing around the room, the total number of punches thrown by people in this studio, what would you say that number is?
It's
Because I had
funny-
this thought the other day.
I think Dan is the leader.
I've been in one fight. I don't think I actually threw a punch.
Hang on. Does anyone else have a sister? Because I think that puts me head and shoulders above the rest of you.
Well, I do, but I didn't punch them.
I had a fight where all I did was throw one kick.
So not a
Yeah.
punch.
No, I've thrown punches in a fight before, too.
Like
But-
a Masvidal?
But like, yeah. I knocked the wind out of some dude in elementary. Ironically enough, his name was also Mike Ruiz.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just a kick, though? Was it like
Yeah, I was a black belt in Kempo.
Couple of Mike Ruizes. Cutting it up.
Kicking it up. He charged me.
So it was a front
charged me.
kick? It was
no,
like,
no,
like-
it was just like a little side kick that I put a little something on and he knocked the wind out of him.
Little extra.
Boom.
Yeah,
Fight
nice.
done.
King of the Mike Ruizes.
You guys were...
That's what we were fighting about.
making fun of me because of the hiccup of the breath taken away, but only Chris Cody gave me something that actually produced that feeling for him of awe in sports. Because the reason I bring it up, right, I was making fun of Stugotz and Cody yesterday for being so hardened about having seen so much sports that they can't muster enthusiasm for a third place finish in the Olympics because it's not good enough for them because they're world weary about sports. The same can be said of me, and I'm surprised that it snuck up on me that way because I know what I'm watching. I know the greatness I'm watching. I know that this has no precedent. She's older than a girl now, right?
She's married.
Yes. She's
so,
27.
So yeah, but okay, sorry. So I didn't know her
I know
age.
it's easy to do that, especially in that sport. But like, there's a 33-year-old Brazilian gymnast now. Like, much like sports medicine and science has advanced in other sports, it's happening in gymnastics as well. And you're seeing much older athletes than you used to.
There's a 39-year-old who's leading our basketball team. He's playing great. He's playing as well as he's ever played. I'm starting to wonder if he's going to play in the LA games. Seriously. 4 years from now.
He's already said he's not going. He said he's not.
That's what he says now. We'll see what happens.
Keep the door
LA
open.
is hometown. Keep the door open. We'll
What else
see.
is he
Get
gonna
Bronny on the team. I mean, how about that?
Wow, that would be quite the accomplishment. Not just get him into the NBA, but get him onto the Olympic team. Whew.
Over Jaylen Brown.
Over Jason Tatum.
Chris Cody, do you have for me the sound of you trying to say 104 miles per hour?
Yep, right here.
Must feel so cathartic, especially.
Well played.
That is not
That was
right.
me hiccuping
That
like
is
Dan last
not
night.
fair.
Breathtaking.
You don't have then the sound of you
All right, I
saying
have
it?
it. 104 mile an hour fastball. You screw up mile an hour one time,
tough
and
one.
you can't talk.
Gotta
about
slow
it.
the tongue down a little bit.
I don't think it's a ridiculous thing to say or experience. Sports take my breath away all the time, but it just, I guess it was just so academic for them to win the gold that I couldn't bring myself there.
You want to see her in pressure moments, right? But you're saying you'll get that in the individuals.
It's kind of weird because I do, but I don't. Like,
No, you do.
I don't want to see her tested that way, but I want her to shut everybody up. It's kind of weird. Like if it does bring up a performance anxiety and she has to overcome that and she succeeds, that's amazing. If it becomes too much for her, I don't think anybody wants to see that or have those conversations again. So I don't know. Here's what I'm rooting for: her to do awesome, her to overcome everything.
Yeah, but with
and for
no
her to be
challenges, Mike?
No. I want her to be challenged. I want the pressure to be there. I feel like that was like from the Olympics 4 years ago. I'm hearing like some like Asian influence here. It's very distracting.
Mike, I think her challenge is going to be now just being in the individual competition and not having the support of her teammates, not knowing that, hey, my first two teammates nailed their routine. I just have to be average and we'll be good. She's got to be probably at about 90% to win the all-around for her comfortably. And that means one fall on the balance beam, one sort of tweak of her calf on the floor, and maybe she doesn't do, that first run to completion. So I think there's definitely pressure on her now, a little bit different, but I think that team competition really settled her.
Don't you guys think she wants that pressure? She wants to challenge herself. She's one of the great athletes we've ever seen.
Yes, yeah, she's saying all the right things.
To see if she can overcome it.
If you've watched any of the content around it in any of her interviews, she's saying all the right things, and she's excelling in her field of play.
But she's not overconfident. She's not selling herself as like this NFL guy, I'm the best receiver in the league. She's being honest, and that's what I love. That's what I feel like I learned from her in that Netflix doc that I feel is continually coming true now. She is just not the perfect human being, the perfect athlete. She's got things to overcome as well.
Yeah, and it's a unique prism to have the conversation about performance anxiety and athletics too, because everyone would acknowledge she's the best. Mm-hmm. Like you can understand if someone's chasing Simone, like why they're feeling performance anxiety. But it was really difficult the last time we had these conversations for people to wrap their head around her specifically feeling performance anxiety, and that's why you had a lot of people coding what she was doing as quitting.
It's not just that she's the best. It's that now that Serena Williams is retired, I'm trying to think around sports where I find someone who's that much better than anyone around them anywhere. Like a level of dominance where...
Asia Wilson this season?
Yeah.
She's playing insane. And the U.S. women's basketball team, they won on Monday against, was it Monday or Sunday? I can't remember. Against Japan. Not their best shooting day. Had like 2 3-pointers. Still won by 26 points. Monday, yeah. Doesn't matter who's shooting around you if you have Asia Wilson, Breanna Stewart. Whew.
I think Shaq felt that level of dominance when he was at his peak. More so than LeBron, just because of his size.
I think Mahomes does right now.
That's a great one. Yeah, Mahomes.
Yeah. It's funny that you should say Mahomes because I'm not sure Mahomes would say that when the playoffs started last year. Like, given the problems that, like, you were doubting. You were very loudly doubting Mahomes. And that incarnation of the team was the weakest in the last 5 years and the most doubted we've seen in the last 5 years. I would assume if Simone Biles can be subject to doubt, that Patrick Mahomes, too, in that spot could be subject to doubt.
I think McDavid flashes it, too, where he does things that no one else can do. It's harder to stick out in a team sport because there's so many variables. I don't think Mahomes is any less excellent if his team falls short against a very good San Francisco 49er team. I think I'd apply the context of the limitations of the receiving core and whatnot and struggling to bring them online. It's a lot easier in solo sports. If a golfer's locked in, I see that with Scheffler. In combat sports, you see it manifest physically, mano a mano. If you have a pound-for-pound MMA fighter or boxer that's just dominant, you can understand it because it's easier, because there's no one else that's mudding things up.
If Simone comes back in the States for the next Olympics and wins all gold, and maybe even gets a picture that Dan loves, holding the flag as the flag bearer, she's going to be the next LeBron. Like that is the type of thing that's untouchable. Like, she's
if
already
LeBron
feels
gets
like
out of the way, I mean,
right. Yeah. But imagine at 31, a gymnast at 31 years old participating and winning some level of gold or some form of gold, whether it be team or individual. That would be something that I just don't know if anybody can touch.
McDavid is a great one because of how rare the thing I'm talking about is. You're watching all of these other people do the same thing at the same time, and you're looking at one of them and saying, this one is just so much more athletically gifted.
He stands out.
This one, but
he's one of the best skaters on the planet. Not a good skater for hockey, like a great skater for humans.
But Simone Biles' athleticism and the height that she gets on things where you're like, how is any of that possible? Mahomes does something like that with some of the trick plays.
Dan, he takes something that we all know to be very difficult and makes it look fairly easy.
Like win 2 Super Bowls with Kadarius Toney.
Yes.
Understood.
Holland?
But Josh Allen has better arm strength. Like it has something that you're watching.
Debatable, but I mean,
let's put that on TNT right now.
Right.
Put it on
I'm taking Mahomes against. Wow, Josh Allen's the guy.
Put it on the poll
And
at
Stephen
Le Batard
Morris.
Show.
Stephen Morris. He had a cannon. Mike is right.
You had to be there.
It wasn't accurate, but he had a cannon.
You had to be there. It's probably going to run back for 6 the other way.
All right, put it on the poll, Juju, at Le Batard Show. Better arm strength, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Stephen Morris?
Oh,
Go
man,
ahead.
I thought he was going to be so good.
A couple of coin tosses.
Go ahead and put that on the poll. Also put on the poll, does rugby seem like a sport that was made up by bouncers at Le Batard Show? Because every time I'm watching that, I'm like, what's everyone out there doing?
Sevens is crazy. They are just running full speed the entire time. I don't really understand what's happening, but it is like shocking every time I watch it.
Someone has explained it to me several times how it's safer than tackle football.
I've been
but
watching
I don't
it
really
with
see it.
my boyfriend who like played rugby, and he's explaining it to me, and I still don't know what's going on. But before we close the loop on Simone Biles, like I don't think it can be overstated how much she's changed gymnastics. Like she has transformed the entire sport, and she has transformed U.S. gymnastics in particular. So regardless of how she does in the individual events or in the all-around, or if she comes back in 4 years to compete, she has already left her mark on the sport and on fans. And like there's really no accomplishment that she needs to now complete to have her name as the like predominant name in the legacy of U.S. gymnastics forever.
Oh, but she's got to win.
But she already has. Yeah.
But she's got to win more. Like this is
That a boy.
Like,
was-
no,
Yeah.
I'm just.
But no, she doesn't really though. Like
Now you're
she's
coming around.
already
She's already become the Michael
already done
Phelps.
it.
Like did Michael Phelps have to win at the tail end of his Olympic run? Like I think that's the barometer. At her peak, like she was unbeatable.
I agree with everything Jessica is saying, and if she loses, it will be crushing for all people involved who celebrate her. What were you saying about a cannon club?
There's a website called cannonclub.com, NFL's greatest arms. I have their rankings. They have Mahomes number 1. They have Josh Allen number 2. They have Favre 3 all time. Stephen Morris not on the list. The Cannon Club.
You guys are very comfortable saying that Mahomes has better arm strength than Josh Allen, and I thought it was just an understood consensus that Josh Allen has the biggest arm in the sport. I didn't think that was even something up for debate, and it's no knock on the on the arm of Mahomes, obviously, but I just simply assumed that no one can throw the ball harder and farther than Josh Allen. Yes. All right. You know what?
Flip it.
Minor penalty, 2 minutes, stumbling.
Michael Vick threw a ball out of a stadium.
I
Forget
think
that?
you know what?
We forget that? I brought that up the other day.
I was thinking that Michael Vick had the greatest arm that I'd ever seen. It wasn't accurate, but he had a cannon.
Best lefty
man.
arm?
Vinny had a cannon too.
Is it me or does Lamar Jackson look like he flings it like a frisbee? Like if he really let it go, he could toss it 70 yards if he wanted.
He's like one of those guys. He doesn't have he looks like he would have arm troubles.
They need to bring that
he drops his
competition
elbow.
back. I miss the old quarterback
So
club
much fun.
competitions.
And the pants.
Bring
You
that
gotta
back.
the pants.
Zubaz.
Wait, Mike, what was it? Like, refresh me here on
It
quarterback.
would be during the Pro Bowl. They would make just a specific TV special that would air on ESPN. Like if you got home early from school one day, you would see Jim Harbaugh throwing a football that had blue powder at the end of it at a bullseye, driven by like some dude in a golf cart. That was the best. It really was.
That's how you could tell Dan Marino was the most talented quarterback just by the way he walked around those other guys. He knew he had the cannon.
You
he
would
knew.
learn-
It was like Larry Bird in a 3-point contest?
Yeah,
All right.
the quarterback club went away in the late 90s. They need to bring that subdivision of the NFLPA back. Just redo the posters of the quarterback club, all wearing like Zubaz and jackets.
The throwback
God,
hats.
do that.
Yeah,
Quarterback
Mahomes
club.
could never throw it out of the stadium like Vic did.
So wait, just to be clear, that was a Powerade commercial, was it not?
Nope.
No, it's real.
This was real.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're completely out of the stadium.
So you're saying Mahomes could never do that? They're saying here on CannonClub.com that Mahomes has thrown a football 85 yards. Allen 80 yards. I don't know if that's the way you measure who has the the best arm, but I
It
guess
seems
it
like
is,
a pretty
right?
good way to measure
Yeah,
it.
how would you gauge it?
By literally measuring it.
The size of their arms. Will Levis to me. Cannon.
If you squint.
So if you throw it harder but shorter distance, you have a bigger cannon than if you throw it farther? I think distance is the key, no?
Well, I think distance, the key is can you put some touch on the ball?
Do you get a running start? Is this the
Stu,
rule
what
should
are
be
you doing?
three
5-step
three
drop.
step, yeah, 5-step drop.
I'm breaking
fine.
down arms.
and just like one step into the throw. You can't get a running start. That's for a different competition.
Kyle Bowler threw from the 50-yard line on his knee over into the goalpost, past the goalpost.
Different competition.
It is.
That's
Yeah.
a good
Truck
arm, though.
shot.
Stand still. All right.
That's a name, though, for the quarterback club. Kyle Bowler. Very tail end. You could kind of recognize
I
him.
mean,
That's
you're
when
on
you
a
knew it
knee
was
and you
falling
can throw it
apart,
into
though.
the field goal post. Like, come on.
What's wrong with the Cannon Club? Hey, Dan.
Hey, Dan.
I wanted to get back to something that happened with Stugotz yesterday when we were talking about this competition, show Olympics that we're doing, and somehow, and I don't know how this happened exactly, I've been ensnared in the swimming portion of the competition. But when I left the show yesterday, it made me laugh, this idea that I neglected to see when we were talking about it. In the spirit of Stugotz and Greg Cody always overestimate their own abilities and us underestimate the abilities of great athletes, Stugotz actually said the key to our race is he and I getting to the wall and spinning and going the other way.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, you think we're actually going to speed up and do that well? You think that that's something that
I am.
you and I are going to do well?
Are you even going to know when the wall is approaching?
That is correct. My eyes are going to be
see.
closed. I'm going to be holding my nose, swimming with one arm.
I had the same thought, to be fair, because like the moves that they do to turn and then push off the wall, they're very choreographed.
It's
And
the hardest thing in sports.
It's probably one of the hardest things. Other than the butterfly looks terrible. I would never want to do that one.
Seriously, it's so slow.
It looks so awful to do. Every other stroke, fine. You could sell me on the backstroke. You could sell me on the freestyle. I don't know how they do the butterfly. I don't want to be stroking it that way.
You guys aren't going to believe what just happened in here. He pantomimed the butterfly stroke and then muttered "ow" under his breath because he's been complaining about his arm for about 2 weeks, saying he's got some sort of pain that makes me think that he. It scared me a couple of times that his arm hurts this much because arm pain can suggest in people of our age some heart difficulties.
The ticker is doing just fine, Dano. Just fine. We may have to cancel this swim meet, though. I mean,
Didn't they also say they could get a point, or Greg Cody said he can get a point off of a Olympic ping pong
Stugotz
player.
said that he could do that.
I did, yeah, a little slice backhand. I mean,
You wouldn't
Not the
touch
guy I
ball.
was watching this morning. Oh my God, his serve was crazy.
Jessica, not anybody. He cannot get a point on anybody who's winning an Olympic gold medal.
We said that the last time, and then the 6'11" tennis guy whose name is escaping me right now.
Riley Opelka.
Riley Opelka.
I returned to serve.
with a cigarette in his mouth.
Yeah, yep.
He's not an Olympic medalist.
That
Last
is
time I
not
checked.
the
Although he's
same.
on the comeback trail and he looked good.
Really?
Yeah, he was out for basically 2 years. Bad injuries.
Way to go, Stu.
I took care of him.
You ruined him briefly.
You keep saying you returned to serve. Did you actually play the point out? Because you're talking about winning a point.
I
in
returned
ping
the
pong.
serve. He hit it back. I hit it into the net.
All right.
I mean,
So you
point
lost.
over. Yes.
Yes. When are we ever going to do? He thinks he can make 6 or 7 penalty shots against an MLS goalkeeper.
I'll let him do it against Mike and not get 6 or 7.
Is he allowed to drone? Is the goalie allowed to drone scout where the kicks are going, like Canada has been?
I don't telegraph. I mean, I can tell you that much. I look one way, I kick the other way. I mean, you'll see.
Don't tell us
That's
that.
the telegraph,
Well,
Stu.
listen, just don't tell the goalie. I mean,
That's the note that I have on my water bottle.
yeah.
Looks one way, goes the other.
So if the goalie is listening, he'll think that I'm looking one way and shooting another way. But I will look the way and then shoot that way. Now I've got him thrown
figured out
off.
PK.
Sure, he's never dealt with that.
Can we have a basketball court here in the Elser. Is there anything, do you want to give us any of your basketball bragging that anything you can do that we can actually test during the show? Because we've been wanting to do this goalkeeper challenge for about 10 years. We actually had it set it up a couple times. Stugotz didn't show up.
That's not
We had people willing to do it. Is there anything basketball related that we can test during the show today that you would be willing to say that you can do that I don't think you can do?
I mean, I'm open to anything. I will tell you that no one has hit more threes in the history of Long Island basketball than me. So if you want to send me out there, if there's a three-point stripe, I will go out there, Dan. If you give me 20 shots, I'm guessing I hit 10, you know?
Now, this was
50%.
This was a very
College three, by the way.
Are you
This
being
was-
defended?
this was a very easy thing to look up and prove false, which it
right.
has been several years with this lie.
Yes, this lie is not in any way
6.5.
true.
You had my coach on. I mean,
You made 6.5 threes?
I had 6 1/2. It's a record. You had Steve Shackle on, my coach, Coach Shackle, Shaq. I love him. You had him on to verify it, and he did. I mean, he said I had a sweet J. You guys were all there for it. Mike was there. Chris was there.
Was a
Dan, you were
record.
there
Was a record.
at the time.
Chris, can we please find, I don't know if it was the first year of Long Island basketball, the first year in the history of Long Island basketball, first game played in the history of Long Island basketball. Can we find out if they can get us in the gym here so that we can just see Stugotz at some point during the show, post-game show, take 20 shots? I don't think he's going to make 10.
50% from 3.
Yes, that's what he's
College.
saying.
Yeah, you delivered on
yeah,
you
okay.
delivered on the free throw challenge that
Thank
we
you,
did
Mike.
at the Heat facility across
Yes.
the street not too long ago.
I took 100, right?
Yeah, and you made more than you missed.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, that was a.
I made
that
like
was a bit.
60-something, yes. Yeah.
That's right, Jessica. You're
That's a different thing.
you should be unimpressed by that. Yes, it's wildly unimpressive.
But for him, and where the bar was,
and I was running.
he cleared it.
He was running. He says he did do some running beforehand. So
I
he
could
would
do
be
that hard thing
moderately
because I did
tired.
this easier thing
Yeah.
one time.
All right. We will test this at some point during the show today. Do you guys have any thoughts? Because I have not talked about this. Charles Barkley put out a statement and talked a little bit with Dan Patrick about saying they're going to give everything they have next year, but it would appear that's going to be the last year of that show in certainly on that network, but in its entirety, I wouldn't bet on that show being back and just being purchased by someone else. So what do you guys think is going to end up happening there? Barkley does seem a little less strident about retiring.
In the same interview, he kind of let it slip that they've already started talking to other networks. So, like we said previously,
As a show, Mike?
Like we said
Yeah,
previously,
but it's not going to be
Charles
the same show if
know.
Ernie's not there.
Charles has been talking about, again, I don't know if I believe that Ernie wouldn't be there because you can just, all these people in that statement, he was very careful to say, look at how much money they have. because they can just buy the entire concept if they're out there. Charles has been talking about retirement for 15 years, and he always takes money.
Tony, have you decided at all where it is that you might be going to see if you can find a single person in South Florida who can name a current active Marlin?
We've got a couple places under consideration, Dan. I think we might be going to La Aguacera. Maybe somewhere on Bird Road, get the real feel of the people. But again, that may be a tomorrow thing. I'm very busy today. I'm actually editing the entire show as being in the show. It's very difficult.
At first, he was like, "Can I just go out there in our studio because I got to edit today?"
No, I want someone to do this today. Today is the day to do this because the Marlins have a payroll that I just can't fathom. Like, I can't believe in 2024 this is a major league payroll. Well, it's not a major league payroll. It's a minor league payroll. In fact, Samson, let me ask you this. What is the cost of a AAA team? What am I paying in salaries for a AAA team? I'm dead serious.
It depends. Let's say players can make anywhere from 10 grand a month. Some of them make 20 grand a month over 6 months. So call it on average, maybe 100 grand a player. And you can multiply that by 25, 26 players.
Okay. So
you're paying more. You're not being fair. You're not actually counting the Marlins payroll right. I can't believe I'm going to defend the Marlins, but I will. I had such a chance. Yesterday was my glory that I could have gone all in on Marlin hatred. But why would I do it when they did the exact right thing yesterday?
Well, no, let's go through this for a second, because what are you saying I'm not being fair about? They're
paying money to players that are not actually on their roster.
That helps.
Okay, but what do you mean? Okay, but that's on their roster. Their active payroll is down to $13 million. Like, it's not what
every team's active payroll is lower than their stated payroll.
All right, but what's the distinction that you're making? Like, they are well below anybody else in baseball in terms of what they pay players, including the Oakland A's.
But they were not when the season started, and they were trying. Actually, they may have had close to a record payroll this year when the season started, and the players just didn't work out. And Bruce Sherman allowed Peter Bendix to bring Tampa to Miami, and that's what he did yesterday. He is trying to do Tampa, and to do it, you acquire multiple prospects and you hope that some of them hit, and then you sprinkle it with a few free agents when your team is ready to win. But right now, Florida and Miami is going to enter sort of a Houston, Baltimore, Chicago scenario where you're going to have 2 years, 3 years of 100 lost teams.
How is it possible, David, that we're still here with this baseball team?
Well, you were in the playoffs last year. You've been in the playoffs twice since 2020. So I don't know what you mean by still here. There were great trade deadline moves made last year, and the Marlins made the playoffs. Whether it was because they won one-run games or whatever the reason is, I don't know if you can hear me or see me now.
Yes, we can.
We're good.
Okay. So the answer is that last year at this time, everyone was excited. This year it didn't work. And instead of being like me, I always thought we were in it. So we always tried to add and traded away prospects. And we got pilloried by you, so angry that we would trade away prospects that didn't work out. But guess what? They're doing the opposite. They're trying to build a sustainable team. The only thing I had issue with, if we can say it, is that Peter Bendix sent a letter to everyone yesterday and released it. And it looked just like what Jeter always said. We want to have a competitive team here for years, and we're going to do it the right way. Maybe he's right this time.
All right, we've got video problems here with you, so we're going to take a break here real quick, and we're going to come back in a second. And Jessica's celebrating back there because evidently we did something in beach volleyball.
Let's go! USA, USA.
Chris Cody, do me the favor, please, of playing the stat of the day music here. It's got a little heartbreak in it today locally.
Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day. Start of the day, start of the day. It is the start of the day.
Jazz Chisholm became the first Yankee to hit 4 homers in his first 3 games. It's never happened before. It's a pretty historic franchise.
One of them was against a position player.
Yeah.
Okay. But in 403 games with the Marlins, Jazz had 3 multi-home run games. In 3 games with the Yankees, he has 2 multi-home run games.
That's a better stat, I think.
Just needed people watching.
Is there heartbreak, though? Is there heartbreak?
Well, I'll
locally?
tell you
What's the
what.
feeling?
You say we're going to bring David Samson in here from Nothing Personal, but I will tell you that after saying earlier this week that when the Marlins made that trade, my initial feeling was good for Jazz. He'll get to play with another team. When I saw him strutting around third base, electricity in the ballpark, pimping out the trot, I felt bad. Like I felt bad for South Florida seeing him in a Yankee uniform. You can't control how you feel in that moment. I was surprised that it's how I felt.
I'm surprised you felt that way because I don't think Jazz has done enough, and I don't think the fans care enough about him if he goes somewhere else and wins a World Series with the Yankees. I don't think anyone's going to care. For me, Sam Darnold, who the Jets drafted, he is now the starting quarterback in Minnesota. If he turns into a great quarterback in Minnesota, that is a reason to be upset. That's a reason to be sick to your stomach because you had him as a Jet. He went to Minnesota. He turned into a great player. I don't think anyone cares about Jazz Chisholm down here.
That's not true.
Oh, come on. You think he has some sort of attachment to the city where people care that Jazz is doing it in New York?
People who care about the Marlins. What do you mean? What do you think, Samson? What are your thoughts here?
I rooted against every single player I ever traded. And I wanted them to get off to cold starts. I wanted to be proven right as quickly as possible. And believe me, the Marlins brass, as they watch what Jazz has done, they'll rationalize it by saying it's only a few games, and they'd be correct. Overreaction is exactly what you're doing, but the stat is the stat, but it's not what you want to see. You want to see your pitchers get rocked, and you want to see your position players go into a slump, especially with what the Marlins did yesterday, which I believe is great for the franchise. And I never had the guts to do what they did. Not what you want to see. You want to see me of doing. And believe me, we did a bunch of redos. Yesterday really was one of the great one-day redos in the history of a franchise that's had a lot of days.
Stugotz, why would you think that Marlins fans, Jazz Chisholm is not only their biggest name player, but he's the only national star that they had. He's the only thing that they had that had personality and marketing behind it.
First of all, David is speaking from a president of a Major League Baseball team standpoint. So, of course, when he made a trade, he would root for himself to win that trade. Doesn't want the player to perform well. I understand that. I just don't think Marlin fans, he wasn't traded to Philadelphia. It's not Atlanta. It's not the Mets. He's in the American League playing for the Yankees, and I don't think he did enough down here for Marlin fans to be glued to their television, sick to their stomach because he's hitting home runs in the Bronx.
It can just hurt. It doesn't have to be glued to television, sick to stomach.
I like Jazz, but I'm in the grand scheme of Marlin fire sales, I'm with Stugotz. This one doesn't even make the medal stand.
Right.
This is like we traded away Ozuna, Yelich, and Stan. We traded away Gary Sheffield. This is nothing compared to
The only
those.
thing, and I'd like to hear what David has to think about this. The only thing is because he's young, if he does turn out to fill his potential somewhere else, could that have happened here? But if he turns out to just be maybe a 1-2-time All-Star, has a nice little career there with the Yankees,
yes.
I don't think anybody in Miami or South Florida really cares about
Not just young, though. Fun and interesting, too. It's not
Average.
just young.
He's average, Dan. I know you're excited about him because he was on the front of the show. That was all Jeter doing that. All the talk of Jeter being his idol, and it was all ridiculousness. Jazz needed to be traded off this team, and the fact that he was given to the Yankees, whatever happens with the Yankees is fine. He's not the star. He's not the center of attention. He's gotten off to a good start, and that's going to maybe give him the false sense that he's the center of some amount of attention. But wait till he goes 1 for 13 in New York. In Miami, it gets ignored with one camera. In New York, you're on the back page of the Post. So be careful what you wish for.
Dave, you're saying he is average, and so far, numerically, if this is the player that he is, and he's been injured, then you will not be wrong on that. But I'm not wrong when I say rare is the player that has that kind of power at that size. Rare is the player that has the skill set that this person does. He can grow. His potential is bigger than his production has been thus far. And I believe that he can be an above average player. He is not an average baseball player.
It's just wrong. You've described hundreds and thousands of players who didn't live up to what their potential could be, what they were scouted to be. They had the body to be better. It's just what you're saying. It's full of emotion. I get it. You're an emotional person.
Dave, you cannot tell me I'm wrong in that amount of pop at that size. I am not wrong about that.
Dan, the players voted him the most overrated player in major leagues. In the major leags. Think about that. The players voted.
Because of the amount of attention he's gotten while playing for the Marlins.
Well, because he's average.
His production so far has been that, but I believe he's going to be better than that. And I believe when he gets a chance to do it in a place that he's enthusiastic about playing, that outside of injuries, that he will be better than that. I'm not arguing with you that the production hasn't lived up to the hype. I'm not arguing that part.
$5.
For?
Tone.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Over Jazz, I mean.
I can't believe the hill you're going to die on is the Jazz Chisholm hill.
You and Billy.
It's staggering, the fact that you don't really have any discretion when it comes to your hills anymore.
You and Billy really care about this franchise, and I kind of recognize being the lone angry voice, like why isn't anyone caring as much as I do? And I think that's where you're at with the Marlins. I mean, they were blacked out here in the market on a major carrier for most of the season.
That goes understated.
And most people were like, it's fine, better off that.
And they were in last place.
But
they didn't break up. This wasn't me trading away great players. This was a team trading away last place players. Let's not exaggerate what went on yesterday.
Yeah, and I think my detachment from the Marlins was exactly what Mike said. It was them not being on TV. I'm not going out of my way, paying extra to watch them. That was a detachment, as far as I'm concerned, as a fan, while they were doing good, because I couldn't see them.
You guys can be detached all you want about the fact that they've killed baseball down here so thoroughly that Chris Cody is like, yeah, I'll take a beating. It's not as bad as all the other beatings I've taken. I'll take this beating. This beating seems like it hurts less because it's not my entire outfield.
But we are a last place team, Dan. Like,
Right.
what are they building around
Why
here?
keep them? Yeah.
Like, if we were in contention, I would agree with you. But it's just there's like Tanner Scott, Arise, and Jazz Chisholm. It's just like, yeah, fine.
So it's a lone thing that I miss about being a Browns fan is that nothing can break me. I've seen it all.
Exactly.
Nothing can hurt me worse.
Achilles, 4 plays in.
What do you think of the trade deadline movement in general, David?
I love it. Listen, when they changed from 2 deadlines to 1, here's a little nugget for you. There's no August deadline anymore. So this is the final deadline. What your roster is what your roster is right now. And MLB did it trying to win a day. And I think they won the day. There were 30 trades made. The Olympics were going on, yet people were very focused on all the movement in baseball. And you try to do it. Roger Goodell is the king of this. He wants to win a day, and he finds so many different ways to win days. And this one was for MLB.
No, they weren't, David. No, we were all watching the Olympics yesterday. Come on.
Well, split screen.
Simone Biles was performing. Suni Lee, Jordan Childs, Goosey's, by the way.
I was updating X all day waiting for news. And it's funny, before social media, the way we got trade information on trade deadline day is we'd watch either ESPN or MLB Network, and there'd be a ticker But really, the way you do it on the inside is you get a computer list of the rosters of teams, and you see players being blipped off one team and being added to another team. But yesterday, all you had to do was press refresh, and it was horrible because my For You timeline was all political. Is anyone else having that issue?
Yeah,
I'm trying
it's
to follow
almost
baseball.
as if they're fixing it that way.
There's no way.
I stay off the For You timeline.
Do you believe?
What do you do? Just the following?
Just the
You
following.
got to do
My
following.
little chamber.
They like that's the default position for you, and they're very clearly trying to manipulate the election.
I can't deny that. It's horrible. But the problem is I don't follow enough people, so my following is just full of nonsense. So I'm going to do better. Maybe I need a list of people I should be following. I also don't like when you update your Twitter and you get the same 10 people trying to be first to something, but then they have to give credit to the same guy. So you're seeing the same thing 10 times. I got to find a way to get rid of that too.
While we're on the topic of tech, if you have a Yahoo email address or Yahoo password for your fantasy leagues, go ahead and change that. There was a big data breach today.
What are they going to learn?
What else is
Like
new?
my favorites, like my keeper?
I'm numb to the data breaches. I get things in the mail that my data's been breached, and I used to have people ready to be hired in order to fix things and change things and
It would
get a
stop
new
your
Social
day.
Security.
Yes.
Now I throw it away. Like, what, you think anyone's going to change their Yahoo password because of a data breach?
Every time I get a text that says, "Hello, Jose, how are you today?" I was like, "Oh, another breach. What? I wonder what it is this time."
Samson, stay there. We're going to come back with you in a second. I want to talk to you about what Inter Miami is doing because they're raising ticket prices again. What are
They're
you
lying to you.
What are you smiling about back there, Mike? Why are you smiling about raised ticket prices?
It was a banner day for Inter Miami. They got a lot of news, some of it good, mostly bad. We'll get into that with David Samson next. But it seems as though the people that are paying for Messi aren't Brighton, who just bought a player. It was a great bit of business from Inter Miami. It's the season ticket holders. You're paying for everything.
That's right. That's how that
and
one
you're
works.
getting less as a bonus.
Yes. Look at that. And look at how that smile on David Samson.
so
Look at
happy.
him.
Yeah.
Look at how radiant he
business.
is.
And you're schlepping to Fort Lauderdale.
Asshole.
So a lot of news on the Inter Miami front, as we alluded to. Not only did they raise ticket prices, some benefits for ticket members going away, so they're getting less, being charged more. They're peeling away things like friendlies, and cup competitions were kind of dicey. It depended on the competition, but that's not included. You essentially get 17 matches for this newly increased season ticket price, and it should be noted that Messi has missed more than half of the Inter Miami matches this season. People who would make this investment in Inter Miami could always fall back on the secondary market, like Game Time. Game Time is an unbelievable place, everybody.
Fantastic.
That's where I would sell my tickets. That's where I would buy my tickets.
was
I didn't even
sneaky.
mean to do that.
was
No, it
sneaky.
even snuck up on me, Dan. I wasn't even planning on it, but it was just so perfect. I couldn't avoid it. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Dan if you want to get these low-priced Inter Miami tickets, because there's going to be plenty. For $20 off your first purchase, terms apply, last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. So here's all the news. great bit of business. They bought a player for $3 million and have sold that player, Diego Gomez. He's going to Brighton. That was reported by the great MLS reporter Tom Bogert. Follow him. He's amazing. That's a great bit of business. One of the better deals in terms of transfer, bought, and sell price maybe ever. And they also announced, very quietly, the stadium isn't opening in 2025. I think that became pretty self-evident if anybody's driven past the site.
Or flown over it.
Yeah, or flown over it.
Or lived in Miami for 5 minutes.
Yeah. So that's not going to open until 2026. And that's a bummer if you're a season ticket holder. You're hoping to get in that building. But what else do you have for me, Inter Miami? Also, we're raising ticket prices on you. What do you make of the day that was for Inter Miami yesterday?
It's a day from heaven for the owners because they've got to start recouping the investment they made in Messi. And it was always their plan when they gave him that contract was to figure out the different ways. And I think the issue with the stadium, they knew from the beginning the stadium wasn't going to open in 25. It never had a chance. There's not a piece of rebar. There's not a piece of rebar at all on the site, as you know. And they chose today to do it because it's sort of like the news dump where here's everything that we're doing. We're going to rip the Band-Aid off and give it to you now. But the thing is, Mike, that while you got rid of your season tickets, they've got enough season ticket holders in Fort Lauderdale who will pay that price. And as long as that happens, the prices will continue to go up. All that has to happen is for people to say no mas, and be done. No, pun intended. I
think that day is coming because they were very careful. The supporters section, which if you've ever attended a game, they've got a great supporters section. They were going to stage a walkout last year, and at the death, Inter Miami avoided that from happening. I don't think they're going to be able to avoid it. And as someone that hadn't gone for quite some time, I went to the Leagues Cup match last weekend, and I was kind of disappointed by the crowd. That was a crowd that, no matter what anybody would say about this market and its interest in soccer, even pre-Messi, it was pretty well attended, and the crowd was thin for this match. I think people are starting to say with their money that they're not buying anymore, and we'll be curious to see what the pivot is.
And I think Miami is just being Miami, and I don't want to be critical of it as a market at all, but there are attendance issues. There just are in every sport, and you can clap back at me with the Heat or with the Dolphins, and I will always argue that attendance in Miami has been an issue. I would say it was thin
for Inter Miami, not thin for a crowd, and I would not at all, considering the trek that most Inter Miami fans have to make. I would not put any of this on Inter Miami fans. I think they're really loyal. They've shown it since day one of the franchise. This franchise is starting to betray the day ones, and it's really unfortunate.
It's a tough thing that you have to figure out when your team is now worth $1 billion, which is what Moss claims. You are going to, at some point, betray your day ones because it's like with a growing show. Your day one audience is different than your day 1,000 audience, and you don't want to betray them, but you've moved on. You've gotten bigger. It's like saying that you're sad about your starter house, that you move out of it when you get to move into a bigger home. Are you betraying that starter house? And I don't want to sound like I'm being too harsh to original fans, but the reality is, Mike, that you're the last person on an owner's mind. The day one, the emotional guy, the one who bought tickets. And I'm just trying to give you some truth here. You're just not the focus for the sales department or the owner.
Mike, I'm curious if you would have felt this way if Messi hadn't gotten hurt, if he was playing in that game, in the Leagues Cup game, and it had been the full sort of rowdy crowd that you expected. Were you still thinking that it's on the verge of, I guess, some sort of fan collapse, if you will?
I don't think they're on the verge of a fan collapse. I think that they're going to, I think that from what I'm gathering on social media, I don't think they're going to be able to avoid a supporter walkout, which are optics that I know for a fact they desperately tried to avoid last year because they didn't want those. And so we'll see if they're able to avoid it this year. I know the Inter Miami fan. I know how vocal they are. I know how passionate they are and how hurt they are by this. And they're feeling priced out by all of it. And no, it's not like the starter home because Inter Miami is not going to give up the starter home. They're going to own that land in Fort Lauderdale no matter what. And they got a pretty sweet deal on the new land. I'm not at all comparing their trials and tribulations to that of the average American moving homes.
I would say that supporter walkouts, if you look at the EPL and look at soccer overseas, there's supporter uprisings all the time.
And they're hugely effective to the point that they broke up trillion-dollar deals. I think, if anything, the U.S. soccer fan can learn something from what happens at Europe because they don't – do you realize – I know somebody that runs business operations over in the UK. He has to have a town hall if he charges 7 cents more for a soda. The fans absolutely have a voice over there, and we should honestly learn something from it.
Wait, because they have the town hall, does that mean they don't go ahead and do the price increase?
Often.
That's like Ricketts flying.
David, are you trying to outgun me here? Because,
No,
they've
I'm
stopped
trying to
it.
ask
Are
you
you
if
not
you
familiar
think-
with Super League? Like, they stopped that, and it may come back, and it's going to be totally different from what they tried to shove through the door. Yeah. No, they've stood in the way of capitalism, progress, if you're looking at it from a business standpoint, for decades on end.
So would a fan walkout even work here if the fans don't have that type of pull?
I don't know. America is totally different because I think the consumer is largely resigned to them being powerless when there's plenty of examples
abroad. For it working, Mike, I'm trying to understand. Does it have to do with payroll? Does it have to do with finances? Does it have to do with the worth of the team?
The consumer in Europe has successfully, time and time again, stopped ticket price increases, has stopped price gouging time after time. Do you see some of that incrementally? Yes. Do some clubs get away with it more than others? Yes. Do fans force people to step down from their positions? All the time in the UK. All the time. There is a resignation here from the American consumer and sports fan that they are totally powerless.
That is terrible.
And you're saying
business.
we don't have that here?
David, hold on a second. That's terrible business, though, Mike. You're not a lot of fans to dictate what your business model is. If you want to raise tickets, you raise tickets. You don't ask the fans.
And you are proud to be an American.
I mean, I'm sure he is.
But
Dan,
in addition to that being true, what Stugotz is saying, it does happen here in the States when you've got CEOs who get shackled or they get fired or it happened at Boeing.
It doesn't happen in sports. It only happens when you hire a head coach that you're not happy with, and that's how Greg Schiano stays at Rutgers.
Mike's doing a new thing here, David, where he's got a coffee mug and he's slamming it as he's yelling at you, and Dan's just cracking up. And I'd like to know what Dan's
We're
cracking
out of
up
the paper cups, so now I'm a coffee mug guy with tea in there. But I do like the visuals of that. It's night and day.
It is
It
very different. I know some of the same people Mike is talking about, and they are very careful about doing stuff like this to their fan base over there. They run scared of their customers. The customers do have a voice that South Florida doesn't have. But when you criticize attendance in South Florida, and that's certainly very easy to do, what do you do with the fact that the Heat have sold out every game since 2010? It's like the fourth longest streak ever. That is a fact.
Well, don't get me started on how to get a sellout streak, but the Heat do deserve credit. They have had a sustained period of multi-generational success with different sets of players. They have run their organization in a way that no one else in Miami has been able to do. Frankly, very few teams are able to keep a competitive window open as long as they have. Of course, what happens when they're not in a competitive window and when they're in the lottery? Will they still be selling out? And there were times when they had to curtain the upper deck when they weren't getting sellouts. So there are roller coasters and ups and downs. Congratulations. The Heat have had this sustained open window, which is amazing, but it's hard to keep those open forever.
But you're blaming attendance in South Florida on South Florida, and I'm giving you an example of, well, if you run your organization right, it doesn't seem to be the same attendance
Look at
problem.
what's going on with the Panthers. They're truly sold out. Crazy demand because they finally fixed what was going on up top.
But that's such a Miami-centric thing that you're saying. There are almost every market is the same. When there is success, it can correlate to increased attendance, increased ticket prices. It just feels like it's a Miami thing. But the fact of the matter is there's attendance issues in very many different cities like Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or Kansas City or Tampa on the west coast of Florida. When you don't have a franchise that works, it doesn't work. But then once you win, it works. There's this thing that we try to say that, oh, it's about the experience or it's about the stadium location. It's a bunch of horse hockey. Fans want to support a winner, and that's it. And so the Marlins have just never been able to have sustained winning under any of our watches, and that's why there's never been good attendance. When the Panthers weren't winning, they had to pay people to go under Michael Yormark. Now they're winning, and people are going, and that's a credit to Caldwell and Viola that they've put that team together.
I understand what you're doing, and you're speaking from far more experience. I would say that baseball and more so soccer, they highlight in-game atmospheres and experience more than others. That's why minor league baseball thrives in certain markets, because people like having fun at these ball games, and they don't really care whether or not their minor league baseball team wins anything or not. It's about experiences for certain sports because it can help. And Inter Miami has tried to augment the in-stadium experience, but they're pricing those people out that care about those things.
Everybody tries to augment the in-stadium experience. The reason why minor league attendance, A, their capacity is much smaller, and B, it is true that you're not going for the standings or going to see the players of the future. You're actually going for a more professional version of the Savannah Bananas. And that's been going on since the days of Bill Veeck. That's what, when he tried to bring minor league thoughts to the White Sox, you know what happened with Disco Night. And maybe Dan's the only one in the room. Maybe Mike remembers. Maybe Chris.
Riot.
There was am I the only one?
No, it was a riot. Like a bunch of fans came on. There was, it was a famous thing.
Jessica knows what everyone knows what you're talking about. And the Savannah Bananas represent one of the great business successes in the history of American sports.
Well, they're the Harlem Globetrotters. It's fantastic. They travel around and they put on a performance where it's not about wins and losses. It's not about knowing who's on the team and being upset when a player gets traded or not signed to a long-term deal. You're simply there to be entertained. And in professional sports, we always used to say, we're in the entertainment business. We want to entertain you. And that's a line that I would use all the time, but my fingers and toes would be crossed because I said it because I wanted it to be true. But when you're in professional sports, you're in the winning business. That's the only business you're in.
Before we get out of here with you, what do you think of the idea or the discrepancies in how it is that countries pay their athletes?
This is so good. Are you watching, Jessica, the Olympics? Have you read the article where it goes over the countries and how they reward their medalists? So in the U.S., we don't do much of anything. It's like 30 grand for a gold and 20 grand for a silver and 10 grand for a bronze and no money for tin. But Singapore it's like over 700 grand. But my favorite is Kazakhstan. If you win the gold medal, and they have a gold medal winner this year, you get a 3-bedroom apartment. Wow. If you win the silver, they give you a 2-bedroom apartment. And if you win the bronze, they give you a 1-bedroom apartment. And the reason I'm laughing is that, of course, the apartment's in Kazakhstan. It's not like it's in Tribeca or it's in somewhere like in the village.
Can we negotiate?
Of course, the U.S. can't do it, but there's all sorts of funny things that medalists get.
The United States should be appalled at its treatment of its Olympic athletes because it's pretty much the only developed country that doesn't actually fund its Olympic programs. That's why you have Flava Flav actually sponsoring some of these athletes and these sports, because it's all private sponsorships. And as an added bonus, the NCAA is trying to add it as a pork tax to this settlement and make the student athletes actually pay for these Olympic programs as opposed to the government actually stepping up.
But we're winning like 200 medals every single Olympics. I mean, if David was in charge, he wouldn't be paying that much money either.
It's really embarrassing that we don't fund these programs.
What kind of tax is that?
Look, I know what a pork tax is.
Pork barrel tax is. It's an earmark.
Chris.
You hide something.
Delicious.
You just hide something inside of a bill and try to shove it through.
You can say it's not kosher, but at the end of the day, the reason why we win so many medals is we have so many great athletes who want to be Olympians because they find a way to get paid other ways or to be satisfied other ways. The quickest way to increase pay is for us to be at the bottom of the medal list. Then all of a sudden the U.S. would step up.
What is the movie you're reviewing for us this week?
Dirty Pop.
Oh, I saw that. Old dirty Lou Pearlman. That guy's so bad, or was so bad.
Yeah, spoiler alert, was. Lou Pearlman is a man who started Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. And he looks a little bit like someone who would start Backstreet Boys and NSYNC. And you wouldn't realize until you're watching the 3-episode arc on Netflix that he was a criminal, a Ponzi schemer, and an overall bad guy. And you see Justin Timberlake as a little boy. You see the Backstreet Boys when they start, and you're thinking this could be a feel-good story. And then you realize it's called Dirty Pop. and boy, was he dirty. And it makes me sick. So I don't want you to watch it because you're going to lose faith in our system. You're going to lose faith in all the adults who try to do good things for good people. And you're going to be cynical like me. Do not watch it. But just know that the guy who started Backstreet Boys and NSYNC was a pig.
Well, hang on a
and
second.
he is now
Didn't
dead.
He, at the heart of it, just really, really, really want to make boy bands? Because he didn't actually make all this money. He just wanted to repeat what he really liked doing.
Absolutely not. He was supporting a Ponzi scheme where he was living a lavish lifestyle based on people investing money in BS companies and then having the boy bands perform for them, and God knows what that means.
Could have done that a lot of ways, but
singing.
he really had a fandom for boy bands. Like that's the one thing about this show that was wild to me is that whole era of boy bands that affected my life and so many people here's was started by this gentleman, and he was largely responsible for all of it.
Don't watch the documentary.
Seems like Izzy's a fan. I mean,
David, not of Lou Pearlman. Not if you watch this documentary, you cannot
We wouldn't know who Justin Timberlake is if it wasn't for Lou Pearlman.
And
Give
we'd
him a
all be
little
better
bit of
off.
let the man speak.
He was in the Mickey Mouse Club, is he? What are you
there's
talking
a lot
about?
of Mickey Mouse Club members that don't make it that big.
See you later, Samson. Good talking to you. I will remind the audience, Nothing Personal is a daily podcast that is skyrocketing because he does a lot of subject matter that most will not touch. Thank you, David. Good talking to you.
Take care.
I wanted to continue here with something that we got into because you guys are in a funny place with the Marlins that I totally understand. And it is the worst place for a sports franchise to be. The sports franchise would prefer its customers to be angry because angry means you still care. The way that Chris Cody and Stugotz just talked about what the Marlins just did, indifferent.
No anger.
Yeah.
Indifferent is the worst thing that you have in a customer base. And this franchise has very much earned that indifference because it has burned through so much anger that turns into betrayal. I thought that was largely dead in me. And when I saw Jazz Chisholm rounding the bases, wearing the Yankee uniform, reflexively, I did not want that to exist in me.
Right.
I got bothered all over again, and it feels to me like how the argument with your wife or husband that's not actually about leaving the toilet seat up, but
Sure.
all the other resentments.
Right.
My anger about the Jazz Chisholm thing isn't contained within Jazz Chisholm because I can make all the logical arguments for why it is you should trade for prospects and rebuild the whole thing, burn it all down with every value that you've ever had. But I've already seen them do that with Ozuna, Stanton, and Yelich, bringing back all the players that weren't good enough and then waited for these to get good enough, and now they're trading their entire bullpen as well.
You had some night last night. You really have the full range of emotions. How many
that
reactions did you have? I mean,
Well, I care about sports still, Stugotz.
hey, highs and lows, highs and lows. Just a night. I mean, in August. I mean, what are
You're
we
a
doing?
1%er when it comes to Marlin fandom, right? You were there from the beginning. Baseball's in your heart. Like that feeling that came back to you that you didn't expect. I don't know if Chris Cody even had it, who is one of the biggest Marlins fans I know. Did you have that?
2%er, Chris
2%er.
Cody.
I agree with Dan. Like, Jazz is a good player. I didn't dislike Jazz. I just, with this Marlins team, they weren't going. They're a last place team. And usually these trades, all the prospects we get back are like, oh, they didn't even get good prospects. Everything you're reading from this one's like they said, we gave up Trevor Rogers, and the Orioles fans are pissed at they gave up. So the reports are that and the Padres gave up a bunch. So, like, the reports are better for the haul that we got than they usually are.
Agreed. And I understand that it's difficult to sell people on prospects because they prefer names and something they have already seen. But I would simply tell you that my anger starts with Derek Jeter got away with doing nothing here that was positive. Zero.
Playoffs.
Zero positive things that he did. You're telling me playoffs? It's 30 and 31 they went during a.
Playoffs is playoffs.
You got Sandy in a trade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not an illustrious list of achievements. There's two World Series championships early on in the franchise's history, and then Jeter has tied for first the other achievement.
But Dan loves baseball. It's a body of work thing. That's what it is for you. It's just a body of work. You love baseball. You wanted baseball to work down here. It has a couple of years where they won it all, but for the most part, it has.
It's not just body of work. It's the consortium of teaming up with the people in power in baseball to ransack South Florida and kill the sport here because of the greed around the business. When you tell me Jeter, with all of the things that they did, and you're still making an argument on behalf of Jeter when...
Not making an argument, just pointing out things.
The reason the franchise is in this kind of disrepair is because he came down here to be the latest of the saviors, cashed out, made a ton of money himself, and didn't actually leave the organization in any better of a position than
that's
it was
most
in
guilty
before.
is a guy we just had on who inflated the
Him
franchise's
too.
value
Well,
and got an owner that literally couldn't afford his price tag. Like, you keep complaining about it, you just have the guy that's most responsible for it on.
You mentioned the latest of the saviors. That to me is, hey, if you don't understand what's happening here, there's not going to be a savior. It's going to keep happening, and this is what's happened to me.
It's just like you're blaming Derek Jeter for taking a good deal, but you're not blaming David Samson for taking a good deal.
Mike, I don't spend any time blaming David
No,
Sampson.
I'm
Why don't you
saying, but-
ask David Sampson if I spend any time blaming
But
David Sampson?
it's all Jeter is like a ghost of Christmas past. It doesn't matter.
$5 from each of you. In 1997, I remember driving back up to Gainesville in a crackling radio, listening to Game 7 of that World Series, and I thought at that moment, I thought it's in 93, but I thought at that moment I was a fan for life. And I am nowhere near that. In fact, I'm at the point now that if this team were to up and move and become the Las Vegas Golden Nuggets, like John Bowles used to say, I wouldn't even blink an eye. It would not bother me. It would not hurt my heart.
I don't think John
I'd be
Bowles
saying-
could blink an eye. His face is frozen in time.
I would say, oh, now they'll go to a city that appreciates them. I don't care about them. That's how little I care about them. I haven't seen them in 3 years. I've been to that stadium 3 times. Only once did I stay for the game.
I get angry when surrounded by that indifference. It's what's making me angry. It's what's bothering me about it that these things happen and you guys are just
So you're mad at us.
There's nothing that we
numb to
we
it.
tried to change it. We confronted the commissioner about it.
Yeah.
We gave it our best go. Commissioner had a bad interview. Now we're several years removed from that. What can we do about it? We can openly lament all we want. This is like we need someone to buy the team for way more than it's worth, like the last guy did. That's all that's saving them.
We've just accepted baseball for what it is down here. I mean, every 10 years we'll get lucky, perhaps, and then every other year we'll be bad. I mean,
it's July. By
Didn't Mike just
What?
talk about how the European fan has such a strong voice? Haven't we been doing that down here where we haven't been supporting this team and nothing's really changed?
Not a thing. I'm more invested in Inter Miami. I've got the MLS season pass. I've bought my nephew's Messi jerseys. I'm way more of an Inter fan than I am a Marlins fan.
30 days, that's September, April, June, November. You're right. Damn it. Damn, he's right. I thought it was August.
It's a sneaky little month.
31, huh?